Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Joanne Smedley, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander James Hagan. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in the singing of the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Good afternoon. Today we remember and pay tribute to Lance Sergeant Frederick George Ellis. Fred Ellis was born on the 17th of October 1890 to George and Sarah Ellis of Harham, Hampshire in England. His father worked as an engine driver in Alton when Fred was a small boy and later took work as the foreman of a steam plough in the same area. Fred had at least 5 sisters but was the only son. He was educated at the Municipal College in Portsmouth and may have done a little bit of training with the Navy. Fred had seen some service with the 7th Queen's Own Hussars in the British Army and then left England to come to Australia in late 1912. He arrived on the steamer Orsova on the 2nd of January 1913. Fred took up work as a jackaroo living in Moree in Western New South Wales. Fred Ellis had been in Australia a little over 18 months when war broke out in Europe in August of 1914. He enlisted for service with the Australian Imperial Force and within weeks travelled to Liverpool camp. He was accepted for service in the 6th Light Horse Regiment and began his training immediately. Ellis's previous military service saw him do well and he was quickly promoted to corporal. As part of the 2nd Light Horse Brigade of the 6th Light Horse Regiment, he sailed from Sydney on the 21st of December 1914. He arrived in Egypt several weeks later to continue his training in the desert. Ellis would later be promoted to Lance Sergeant. The Light Horse were not considered suitable for use on the Gallipoli Peninsula at first. However, after the casualties of the landing and the confusion the many days afterwards, it was decided to send in the Light Horsemen to Gallipoli, whilst they were to serve without their horses. Lance Sergeant Ellis probably landed with his squadron in late May and will go on to serve in a largely defensive capacity over the coming weeks. On the 12th of July, a British force attacked the enemy in Archie Baba Nulla sector of the line on the tip of the Gallipoli Peninsula. In support of that operation, various Australian units were ordered to go out and harass the Turkish troops opposite their line in hopes of drawing troops away from Cape Helles and Anzac Cove. An officer of the 6th Light Horse Regiment later wrote to say that Ellis's troop played a very gallant part. They went out in front of the trenches, stormed every hill. Every man was cool, steady and game. The officer in charge did splendidly and was mentioned in dispatches. The work was successful and it achieved its object. Although the overall success of the operation is debatable, it's certain that it was costly in lives. At least 4 men who advanced with a small band of the Light Horse were killed in action. Trooper James Bennett, another member of the 6th Light Horse on the operation, wrote in his diary, "It was a bad day for our squadron. Of the 30 men that went out, only 14 came home safely. They all had miraculous escapes. I was not sorry when we got back." Sergeant Fred Ellis was not one of those who returned. Bennett was not far from him as they went over the trenches. He recorded how they were under very heavy shrapnel and machine gun fire with no cover at all. "Poor Sergeant Fred Ellis died in my arms." Ellis's body was recovered from the battlefield and buried not far from where he fell. After the war, he was reinterred in the Shell Green Cemetery where he lies today. He was 24 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Sergeant Frederick George Ellis, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, We will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.